Welcome back to the Classic Factory for another one-on-one episode of No Dunks. I'm Trey Kirby. On the line, we got Tass, we got JD, and we're very excited because joining us today is a guy who's mean with a tennis racket and an outcast bracket. He's got a one-name Twitter handle and never wants to see two macaronis at Thanksgiving. This guy's been on Air Force One with Barack Obama, one of the hosts of the new podcast, Gaining Ground, the New Georgia, Atlanta's own Rembert Browne. Rembert, thanks so much for talking to us, bud.
What a intro. That was, can I take you around with me to places? That was.
If you want to hire me as a hype man, I would gladly do it.
You remind me of, you have the energy right now of like the guy who entertains at a bar mitzvah. Like very fantastic. Like I'm at 10 and you're at 50 and I love it. And I'm like, my entire day has changed because I love the two macaronis line. That was great.
That's a classic moment as far as I'm concerned. Another classic moment. The last time that me and you ran into each other, I was sprinting up the stairs at a Hawks game because one of my kids had to go to the bathroom. I didn't expect to see you there. There you were. Great seats down at the Fortress. Hey, Rembert, gotta go. Talk to you later. Apparently it was 2 years later. How have things been, man?
You know, I mean, a pandemic happened, but, you know, at the time of us talking right now, the Hawks are 3-0.
Oh yeah.
And so like I'm feeling fantastic about that. I feel very fortunate to have my health in a time when that could just very much not be true. But yeah, I mean, it's great to see your faces. I do remember that Hawks encounter. Shout out Steve Koonin, my guy, for continuing to let me into the building. But yeah, things are great.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Hawks are 3-0. Big win against the Pistons on Tuesday. Trey Young, he's balling, no doubt about it. Huge offseason for Atlanta. How good do you think the Hawks are going to be this season?
So this is such a dangerous thing for me to do right now. Like this is like, I feel like everything I say right now puts the Hawks in jeopardy.
You don't want to jinx it.
I don't want to jinx it, but I have done some things that I've never done before, and the Hawks happen to be 3-0. One of those things, I got League Pass.
Okay.
I've never gotten League Pass before. I'm a big, just find the link guy.
Yeah.
But I work at Twitter now, and I use their laptop, and I'm not trying to, you know, get Russians in our malware and stuff. I'm trying to be a good employee. I'm trying to keep my job.
Sure.
So, and my group text, which is like 12 people I grew up with, the energy has never been more exciting. Both about like the future of our politics and also the future of the Hawks are happening at once. And so I was like, I don't want to just be a passive Hawks fan. I want to be actually, even if I'm on my phone while there's something else, while the Blacklist is playing on my TV or whatever, I need to be watching the Hawks at all times. And I have like missed very few seconds of this season, and it feels nice.
It's funny because they're 3-0. For some franchises, I'd say a big chunk of the franchises, they'd say 3-0. Whoop-de frickin' do. I mean, you really haven't achieved anything yet, but it feels like with the Hawks, this is very good. As you said, maybe, you know, not that level of excitement amongst your friends ever. It's like this team kind of middles its way through seasons. Why the excitement? Why is it happening right now?
You know, I think I have, you know, I am a big believer that Atlanta got cursed around 1990 when we got the Olympics. I think we did a lot of dark things to get the Olympics, and because of that, our sports took a real big nosedive, and we also never got the real world. But I think, I don't know, you know, who's to say that Georgia goes blue and then we go through it? Now, like, who's to say that any of these things are related? Because that clearly did not help our Falcons at all. And we are definitely not here to talk about football. We're definitely here to talk about the only sport I acknowledge right now, basketball. But yeah, I mean, the energy is great. There's something about Trey that makes me like delusionally believe in him. Like
Sure.
like I had a really hard time with the Hawks Millsap years because when I would watch him play basketball, it made me feel like he like wanted to be everywhere else but a basketball court. He would do things and then like
maybe you thought he was going to be posting up. He thought maybe I'll just shoot some threes. I gotta agree with you. Trey Young is by far the coolest Hawks player of my adult life. I don't know about you. Is this the coolest Hawks era there is? The Trey Young era? I know we're only 3 seasons in, but I don't know. The Q rating seems pretty massive for Atlanta.
I mean, I was an admitted skeptic at first. I was like, wow, this like nutmegging people stuff is not going to go very far. You know, like this is like, what is this? Is this like and one Harlem Globetrotters? I don't know if it's going to work, but he just believes in himself and other people believe in him. I think they all seem to like really respect Coach Pierce, who like I is like a father figure to me. I've never met him. I've never met him, but like he has like Coach Carter vibes or something. Sure. Like he has like he wants me to be a better man and then a better basketball player type vibes.
No doubt, we had him on the show. I had never met him, but we had him on the show. He's definitely my dad now. I mean, he's guided me, no doubt.
Yeah, like there's something going on, and it's great. And like I'm just like going through the life. I need to say any stat that I say I've gotten from my group text. So like fact check everything, but just like stats like we've won 2 road games this year. Last year, apparently, I think we only won 6 road games. Check that, someone. But like we're doing things that aren't normal. This energy reminds me of Vic energy, which was like the last time Atlanta just had a player that it was like win or lose, he's cool. Mm-hmm. And it was great because we won a lot when we had Vic. I mean, we didn't always win. We never won. You would have thought we won like 4 Super Bowls during the Vic years. We actually never won a Super Bowl with him, but he gave us pride. And folks from Atlanta like want like we like shiny things. We like flash, and we like people who are like a little cocky and like confident. And that's what the Hawks, I feel like, have been missing for most of my adult life, which is just like a player that thinks he's the best player in the league. Trey Young thinks he's the best player in the league, and I love that. Yeah,
for an arena called the Highlight Factory, there weren't a lot of highlights there for a while, and now it's every single night. You know, there weren't a lot of wins necessarily for the Hawks the first couple of years with Trey, but there were still highlights. The nutmegs were there. It became his signature move, and now the team basically decided, we're all in. We're trying to make the playoffs. We're going to put some veteran pieces around Trey Young. Apparently you like that move. You're fine kind of, stifling the growth perhaps of guys like Kevin Huerter, Cam Reddish, DeAndre Hunter. A couple of them are still starting, but maybe the chances aren't quite as they don't have quite the opportunity that they had coming prior to this season. But I like it. I love the way they're going all in. I like the way they're saying, hey, we got Trey Young. The guy's a superstar. We got to try everything we can to win. It's an exciting time to be a Hawks fan. That's not always the case, but right now it is, man. I love it.
I still think I still think that Cam Reddish is also going to be a star. There's this great clip that I mean it's like one of those things that's been on the internet for 2 years but has like made its way into my life in the past 3 weeks. It's Anthony Edwards talking about, I think it was when he was a senior in high school, talking about like who's like the hardest player of the guard. And it's just like a bunch of now NBA players talking about how like Cam Reddish put 50 up on them. And I believe anything that comes out of Anthony Edwards' mouth. So like I'm just like, Cam Reddish is a star. I'm waiting for it to happen. I know lots of people who are like Sixers fans and other fans who like would love to take him away from us. And I also love that. I just I feel like there was a decade where the Hawks actually did not make SportsCenter.
It's possible.
It's nuts. Yeah. It's crazy.
So like, I just, it's very Atlanta thing. I just like love the fact that people care. I just love to be on people's mind and radar. And
yeah, it's funny because I've lived down here for 7 years, and I really want the Hawks to be good. And they won 60 games one year. But there isn't a time where I talk to anybody back home in Toronto or anybody in North America where I say where the Hawks are of note in these last 7 years. Like I wonder if I was a Hawks fan for the last 25 years, what team I would have latched onto. And I don't think there's one. I think this could be the one. I think Trey's he is growing from nutmegs to just being a good player. He's not shooting all the time now. He knows that there's a path to getting better. And I'm a huge believer in these young guys. I want to jump on the DeAndre Hunter bandwagon and the Cam Reddish bandwagon. And I kind of see this little iteration of, hey, we've got Gallinari, we've got Bogdanovic, we've got Clint Capella. I think it's kind of it's just a bridge to get some assets for those guys and let other guys grow and maybe get a star in here. Because I do believe in those young guys too. I think Lloyd Pierce has a challenge ahead of him. I think there's going to be some bumps this season because I don't know how you play all these guys. John Collins isn't signed. Well, let's get to him. Do you believe in John Collins? Because that's the next sort of step for the Hawks.
I believe in John Collins. I feel like I want John Collins to love us more.
Interesting.
Like last year, wasn't a huge fan of the John Collins smoothie incident that had him down for, 25 games or...
Yeah, right at the beginning of the season, too.
Right. Like, that was a huge bummer. And I was like, come on, John. Just don't do that. And, I'm not saying it was his fault, but, that was a big bummer on me loving John Collins. And, trust me, I am, very much on, players, get your money, get what you're worth. And I think a couple days ago, John Collins, refused a contract or something like the max. Or, again, I'm getting all my stats from the group text. I'm reading them very, very quickly. But I think John Collins is incredible, and I want him to be here for a long time. I just want him to want to be here for a long time. And I'm not convinced. But I think he'll get there because I think, I actually think we're this 3-0 isn't a fluke. I actually think we're just we're gonna do well. Maybe the empty arenas is our thing. It's why
we have been waiting for this.
We basically have an empty arena, but without any of the stigma of having an empty arena. And you look at our team, it's basically an adult AAU team. Let's own this. Let's just accidentally win 80% of our games this year and end up with a 3 seed. I think it would be hilarious, and I think it would be great.
I'm here for it. They had the Pistons last night, made 23s. They got up massive. They almost blew the lead. Even if even if they lose some of those, those are going to be exciting. The Hawks seem to be as advertised. Awesome on offense, hold a bunch of players, and you might be able to score on them. Makes for a fun watch. A fun listen, though? A new podcast I heard about. It's called Gaining Ground, The New Georgia, hosted by Rembert Browne. This is a Tenderfoot TV and Crooked Media production. I guess it's described as a documentary podcast, right, Rembert? About the years-long work it took to flip Georgia blue in a presidential election for the first time since 1992. You got clips of you in this podcast as a little boy. Yeah, I Googled your address. I was looking up where you lived as a kid. What was it like for you on election night to actually have Georgia flip blue after a lifetime of hearing, this might be the year, this might be the year?
Well, it's interesting. I was in Hartsfield at baggage claim when they finally were Biden won. And they finally were because election day became election week. Mm-hmm. But that Saturday, I think it was the 7th, is when it finally got announced. And it was just, those are those moments where you just want to call everyone in your family and don't even have anything to say. You're just no, those things. It was very cool as someone from Atlanta. But it was just a reminder of how this didn't happen by accident. And that's part of the reason I wanted to be a part of this podcast, which is just like highlighting folks that made really purposeful decisions like years ago to either stay home or move back home or just move to Atlanta and be like, I think that we could actually do this, do something that everyone thought was like way, you know, like way like a far, far cry. And, you know, there's something about looking at the electoral map and seeing this blue state and then just like this sea of red around it, which is like, this was not easy. And this was not, you know, and it also like barely happened. It's not like Georgia's like the bluest place in the world. You know, Georgia's purpley and, but we're blue right now. But it made me really proud of folk who have done a lot of like thankless work, who just, you know, every day woke up and was like, I'm going to go knock on some doors. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do that. And so to get the chance to make a podcast that's really not about me or my co-host Jewel Wicker, like our main ask when we got asked to do this was like, can we just make this about the people? Like, I don't want this to be like, I'm bringing in some narrative things to, you know, to make it entertaining and make it informative and storytell. But, you know, I'm trying to flip it to the people that we highlight in the podcast as quickly as I can. I'm just like a device and someone who is like, you know, co-writing this to make it, to get to the beginning, from the beginning to the end. But it's been very awesome to just, you know, reach out to folk, have them say yes, and, you know, do, you know, to some degree, like doing a lot of work over the holidays, the same way a lot of people who are really invested in this runoff, like they can't take the holidays off. Sure. You know, who am I to be like, I don't want to like go in my closet and do voiceovers today. It's like who am I? like go in there and do it until you get it right. So it's been really cool to just play a very small part in the awareness. You know, I think being a part of the national media for years, like it's very interesting to hear how people talk about the place you're from, you know, after like having just learned about it from like 2 articles. So, you know, part of me wanting to do this podcast was not just like the sound of my voice. It was more like not wanting this podcast to go in the wrong direction, like trying to just keep it in the right direction of like the people we include, making sure we're not just like grabbing the most famous people we can find to talk about Georgia, but like having it be organizers, just folks that live in Decatur, a mayor from Albany, you know, like having it really be about Georgia and not just, you know, the things that everyone knows about Atlanta.
Yeah, that's what I found very, very appealing about it, because having been down here in Atlanta, I wanted stories from this city. You know, I was just an innocent Canadian. 2013, came down here. Then I was sucked into the political sphere like a lot of people. You just pay attention to what's going on, but a lot of it is on the national level. And the podcast does an incredible job of telling people's stories, like you said, from different parts of the area, real people who have done real work to help flip it blue over a number of years. So I kind of wanted to ask a billion things, but first, TikTok did some good. I you know, I don't want to look at it and I don't want to scroll it that often because I get addicted to it. But people were sort of writing about young people prior to the general election, galvanizing themselves on TikTok, telling each other, hey, we got to go vote. We got to go do it. And then they showed up in droves. Can you talk about how the heck that happened? What happened with TikTok and the general election?
I mean, it's really interesting because I've spent most of my adult life preaching the gospel of Atlanta teens as the most interesting creative humans on the planet, you know, and I think for years I was just like, every dance came out of Atlanta. Like every like interesting new fashion thing. Like it all. I would find something and I would like be like, wait, these kids seem like they're in a subdivision in Atlanta. Where are they? They're in Atlanta. Like they're in Atlanta. So to watch that energy, in our third episode, it actually starts with a college kid who goes to Mercer University in Macon talking about how proud she was that her generation that often got, written off as like only caring about, just being on TikTok and not caring about societal issues, how they like actually turn that and use that for good and use that to actually be one of the groups that, that pushed Georgia over the edge. I think I don't know. It's very exciting because I think people, I won't even say people have the wrong impression of Georgia. I just don't think people know anything about it, honestly. I definitely think it just gets, a lot of folks probably think of it as like backwards or just think, the way the South gets written off as this or that. And so to watch this internet energy, this TikTok energy, this like insane ability to mobilize your friends and also people that you don't know to actually like change not just a general election, but potentially also this runoff. What's cooler than that, like this, hearing like seeing the excitement of, folks that are getting to vote for the first time. Like I remember voting for the first time. It's like one of the formative experiences of my life. And I remember it because my first vote was '08 Obama. And I remember feeling like I was a part of something, that I was like, actually, my voice might count on this thing that seemed like such a long shot. And I feel like this is one of those moments again.
That's something that comes up a few times in the podcast, is young people actually seeing the results of their vote and seeing the direct impact that their vote can have. You mentioned all these other stories, too, about incremental progress, like John Ossoff barely losing to Karen Handel and then Lucy McBath beating Karen Handel. Get out of here, Karen Handel. It's great to see that name again. Great to see her out of here. Somebody like Matthew Wilson looks at a seat that had flipped by a couple of hundred seats, says, hey, I should run for that seat, wins in a landslide. How come people are realizing their power so much more now? In the first episode, you mentioned Stacey Abrams' speech after she lost the gubernatorial election with Brian Kemp in 2018 as something that really fired people up, kind of the start of the Fair Fight group as well. How are people just seeing so much more of this now? How are people coming to terms with the fact that what they could do actually has an impact on the results of these elections we're seeing?
Yeah, you believe what you see, like when it begins to start, you actually, there's a certain amount of like delusion / insane belief in self that anyone has to have, I think, to just step out there and do it and actually think that it could happen. I was talking to Ossoff about this for our fourth episode that comes out the morning of the runoff on January 5th. And part of what we were talking about was just the fact that like there's just not time to just wait, like that is something that I think our generation and the one below us really feels. It's like, no, I'm not going to wait until I'm 50 and then try to do this thing. Like I'm actually just going to do it right now and see if it works and like see if I can actually mobilize and have a groundswell and like get people to listen to me and get people to believe. We see that online every day. Like we see people, I think it's gone from, wow, this is a place where you can have your 15 minutes of fame and then like we all move on to like, hey, I could actually like become a thing that people care about or listen to. And so to see that similar energy turn into something like politics, I don't think it's that crazy to say like we have hit a point now where being a public official is to some degree cool again. Like it's a for a while I feel like it was not a career path that seemed interesting, but I think from 2016 and what happened in 2016, I just think a lot of people reached their breaking point. It was like, no, like I've actually seen what can happen when the system is in the absolute wrong hands. Like I can point to something and being like, oh, like this can't happen. I think when things are like kind of bad, it's easier to be indifferent. But when you see something that's just so clearly wrong and you are faced with people saying things that are just like, this is the truth, I'm going to say the opposite thing. Like, I think people's breaking point has gotten like shorter and shorter. And I think that's resulted in, someone like me, like, I know like at this point, like multiple people who are in like Congress and like state representatives. And it's not like because they're fancy people. It's just like, they were like, you know what? Like, I want to represent my neighborhood. I think I could do it, and I just think that's awesome. As someone that for years wanted to be a politician, and then I took a step away, like I really think it's a very, very cool thing.
Yeah, and those people that do run can win by overwhelming margins, as there are some of those stories that you have in your podcast. I think it's a sort of a good message for people that it's never too late to start something, whether it is in politics or absolutely anything. A lot of the people you talk to in the podcast were on the sideline in 2016. People who had been activists for a long time, but many thought, oh, Hillary Clinton is absolutely going to win this election. There's no need for me to get out there. So yeah, they've taken steps post 2016. I just think that it's an overwhelming, I don't know, obstacle or challenge, or it just voting in general sort of feels overwhelming, I guess, because everything sort of flies at you. All this news sort of flies at you, but it's pretty simple, right? I mean, and people see the power of their vote now in 2020. Is there a message out there for those people that find it or find the whole thing kind of just like, I don't want to frickin' deal with this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to complain if that indifference is still within you, I think if you do look at the world and nothing about it really upsets you or angers you, you think everything is fine, then, to that person, I actually don't know what to say. But, I really think something positive that's happening is there is a generation of people who are becoming public officials that I do think are knocking like the idea of being a politician off the pedestal a little bit, having it like doing the job with a lot more transparency, doing the job with a lot less of like a capital P, I'm a politician. It's more like this is what I do for a living. Like, this is my job. Like, I represent, like, it feels like we're going more to like, I am a representative more than like, I am a politician. It's like, no, like, I want to represent, whether it's my district or my state or like whatever. It feels like we're heading in a direction of folks just wanting to do right by the place that they live, or the place that they grew up in. Like, that is, for me, why I was originally so interested in politics. And then a lot of things happened that made me extremely jaded and wanted to get away from it or then write about it critically. And now what I'm feeling again is it like actually being something where like if you were dissatisfied with the world around you, like this is one of the things you should do. Like this is something that is a possible thing that it, someone like anyone can like have a message and, you don't have to be a millionaire to, I think sometimes it can get a little blinding when you look into places like Congress and the folks with the most power on both sides are like crazy millionaires, and it's like, wait, like are any of you really upset with the world right now? Because y'all, like I know I can hear what you're saying, but like life's pretty good, But then you have, I love AOC, like I love the way she's demystified being a politician and being a public servant. I think a lot of that is really seeping into not just Congress, but state reps and all levels, just people wanting to be a part of things being better and things not, things being based in facts and, other things that were no-brainers that aren't no-brainers anymore.
Yeah, one of the messages to me through the first couple episodes is that if you care, you can make a difference. You just have to go out there and do it. But another one of the messages that I got is that it's going to take a while. It's not a straight line, the progress. I think it's Duray that mentions the civil rights movement took a decade. Somebody even makes a 28-3 reference in this podcast, Rembert. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. You said you were surprised, it sounded like, that it came in episode 2. Were you thinking it would be in episode 1 that we're getting a 28-3 reference?
I was just like, I have the power to edit this out. But it just happened. It just happened so clean. I was looking at the transcript. I was like, "Oh, this is wow. We made it here. Okay. Nope. Got to leave it in. This is transparency again."
Yeah, it's as much a part of the city as anything else is. But it comes up in the context of you can have an impact, but you got to keep doing it. What do you think are the challenges with sustaining that momentum? I think the stat is that if one party wins the presidential election and there's a special election coming right after that, the other party usually has more turnout because the winning party says, okay, we did our part, we got our win here, and then kind of sloughs off everything else. How come it's so hard for people to sustain momentum in politics?
I mean, I think it's hard to sustain momentum in anything, Sure. Like I remember one of the phrases that I saw this year that gave me a chuckle, but I understood what it came from was this idea of ally fatigue. It was like this idea of 2020, a lot of people felt a lot of things, and people putting black boxes on Instagram and blah blah blah, and then like by the fall, folks were like, being an ally is hard, and I'm tired, and it's very easy to mock that, and I did mock that, but it's just like it's hard for people to just keep doing things that they're not used to doing, and I think when it comes to politics, we get caught in this seesaw sometimes where it's like, okay, it's our turn to be invested, and then let's take a break. And then while we are taking a break, they're like, okay, this is our turn to, hit R1 and go turbo. And then they got it. And then we just kind of keep going back and forth. And I think, I remember in 2017 when Ossoff was in his first runoff, so much of what was being talked about is there was so much energy about leading up to that general election, and then once it didn't go the way everyone wanted, you just lost half the people because they're just I'm spent, how do we keep people just with their foot a little bit on the gas forever? It's a hard thing to ask, but it's extremely necessary, and we have to find interesting ways to keep people invested, which is, part of the reason why making a podcast, during the holidays, one of the easiest times for folks to just disconnect, that's part of the reason that we wanted to make this, and make it in a very quick, fast, intense way is because, it's really easy to lose people's interest, we're talking about an election that people expended so much emotions, it doesn't go perfectly, and then you have Thanksgiving, Christmas, a pandemic, New Year, all these things that typically take people's attention away. So that's part of the reason that I wanted to do this. Is if this can just be one of the many things to keep people thinking about this instead of just kind of being like, ugh, like I did it once, you know, like I hope I did it once and I hope it works out, you know, trying to just break through that, like, I hope it works out, and having people understand, like, no, like, when you just hope it works out, it typically doesn't work out.
Yeah, you got to do something. But, I mean, I think it comes at the perfect time because, I mean, it's easy to forget that the election was literally last month. It happened last month, right? Like, it's still December. It's nearly 2 months ago, but it wasn't that long ago. But it's easy to forget that kind of stuff. I can remember being super disappointed when Ossoff lost to Karen Handel. I remember being super disappointed when Stacey Abrams lost to Brian Kemp. But, you know, they're back now on the scene in 2020 doing important stuff for Atlanta. Something else you're learning from this podcast is just the non-linear nature of the change of progress, right? And the need to keep doing stuff because stuff keeps coming up. You say in a couple of these episodes, there's Atlanta and there's Georgia. We got the runoff election next Tuesday. Both Georgia Senate seats are up for grabs. In one of the races, David Perdue and John Ossoff, and the other Kelly Loeffler, Raphael Warnock. It's basically for the control of the Senate. If people don't know, there are 48 seated Democratic senators, 50 Republicans, and if Georgia's able to win both of these seats, it'll be 50-50. The tiebreak goes to the vice president, who will be a Democrat. What is this concept of Atlanta versus Georgia? Atlanta and Georgia. There's Atlanta, there's Georgia. Like you're saying, it's a little bit purpley. You know, we're calling Georgia blue now, but it has been purple. I remember when it was exciting to put Georgia is purple on a sign a couple of years ago. What is this concept of the two sort of different waves in Georgia? What's that going to mean for this runoff election?
Well, you know, a super important thing for Jewel and I in making this podcast was making sure we stress the importance of Atlanta and Georgia, but also not pretend that, you know, Atlanta did it by itself. You know, like, I do think that part of growing up in Atlanta is being very proud of Atlanta and sometimes having blinders on everywhere else in Georgia that's not Atlanta. And so, you know, it was really important for us to do things like talk to the mayor of Savannah, talk to the mayor of Albany, like people who live in places, you know, with kind of like, for instance, like an invisible black population, for example. You know, like there is kind of a notion that like Georgia is a very red, white state and 100% of the black people live in Atlanta. And it's actually not true. And actually, when you look at the map, yes, like Georgia probably doesn't even go to Biden if it's not for Clayton County, you know, to some degree, or some of the north of Atlanta counties. But you also look at, you know, these like pockets around Savannah, pockets around Albany, pockets around Athens. Like these are places where people did work just like the work that was done in Atlanta. And, you know, for me, I am always in a place to like kind of call myself out on prior biases that I had. Like I was very ignorant about Georgia. You know, I like a couple years ago I wrote something for Bon Appetit where I basically confronted my own biases with Atlanta as like not just a black and white city, and like discovering all of these different cultures that I knew existed. Like I knew Atlanta had a growing Latino population. I knew Atlanta had a growing Asian American population, but in my mind, Atlanta was just black and white. And then I had to like really take a step back and realize like what was happening in my city and how this was a good thing. And I think that's also part of what is happening in making this podcast with Georgia. It's like, yes, like Atlanta did the damn thing. Like Atlanta really did it. And I could not be more proud of Atlanta, but it was not Atlanta alone that got us to a place where we are right now. So yeah, I mean, I used to say there's Atlanta and there's Georgia in kind of an anti-Georgia way. Like as like, no, like Atlanta has like as if 285 was like a wall. You know, and it's like, no, like Atlanta is very much part of Georgia, and we can get to a place where Georgia is something to be super proud of. As like, no, I'm from Georgia. Like, I'm from Atlanta, but I'm also from Georgia. Like, that's an exciting thing to feel proud to say.
You're saying you're down with OTP?
I'm down. Yo, I will never forget the anger when my mom moved outside of the perimeter. I was like, oh, what's next? Do I need to get rid of this 404 area code? Am I about to be a 678 guy? Like, what the hell is going on? But, you know, I have embraced Metro Atlanta as much as I have embraced the city of Atlanta. So, you know, it's, you know, folks from here live everywhere. Like, you live where you need to live, but the ideology has spread around the city and the state, and that's proven to be a good thing.
Yeah, around the city and the state, and even around the country. I found after the presidential election, people really wanted to assist in any way they could for the Senate runoffs. And so a question for you, just to have it out there on record, what can people, whether they're in Georgia or throughout the U.S., do, you know, within the next week? I can't believe it's 7 days away. But to assist, or even if it's going forward past that, what can people do?
Well, you know, I have been reading a lot about that, and, you know, if you know people that live in Georgia, like, I think it is a very good thing to do to, like, check with them. Like, do they have a voting plan? Like, are they voting? Like, are they aware of what's going on? Like, that might be a given to some folks, but it's just not a given. I feel like that's like a very good thing to do.
Totally.
I also think while money is not like the thing that wins elections, like in the going down the home stretch, money is something, donating is something that really impacts, you know, visibility right now. Like, if you turn on a TV in Georgia, there's like, it's like 80% commercials right now, and like those commercials cost money on the radio, like everything. And you know, these candidates need money to keep, you know, it's not just being visible in like the biggest places, but being visible in pockets that really matter. So, you know, I think if you've been waiting for a moment to donate, this is a good moment.
It's an important point, because I think we're a few people you know, on our show that are pretty politically conscious, but there's some people who just don't vote. That's just not their thing. But to see a YouTube video of Jon Ossoff, you know, before they watch you know, Clippers Bucks highlights, it'd be beneficial. It is kind of, it's something that I don't think about because it's just not for me. But when you're right, you see all these ads, and some of them are terrible, and some of them are absolutely 100% false. It's important. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, I think that's legit. You know, I think we're at a place now where, like, I haven't made it much of a secret that I grew up with Ossoff. Like, I've known him for more than half of my life, you know. But, you know, I've also had people come up to me, like, wondering about, you know, specific point, like policy point X, Y, Z, and I'm like, hey, you know, when it comes to like being on the fence of voting or not voting, I keep telling folks, like, hey, like, let the person get in office, you know, like, let the person get, like, the thing that I'm excited for is seeing what happens once people can actually get to work. I think there is campaigning, and then there's actually doing your job. And I'm like, I really want some people to actually get a chance to do their job and be a part of the political system, which involves, like, you know, raising red flags when you disagree with someone. But like, we are just like stuck in this like campaigning cycle that I think everyone is exhausted by. It's just like even people who are so like invested in this. Like that's the hard part about the runoff. It's like it's more campaigning.
I still think fondly about that week after the general election when there weren't political ads every single break. I know that Raphael Warnock's name is at the bottom of the ballot. It starts with W. Of course, that's where it's going to be.
Yeah.
But remember, it's not just 28-3 sports talk that comes up. You also spoke to Angel McCoughtry, Las Vegas Aces, formerly of the Atlanta Dream. She opens up about how let down she was by Kelly Loeffler, owner of the Atlanta Dream, who not long after being appointed as a senator to the United States Senate, she comes out against the Black Lives Matter movement. She gets embroiled in a little bit of an insider trading scandal. Soon thereafter, we see numerous WNBA players sporting Vote Warnock shirts in the Wubble. What kind of an impact did the WNBA have in November's election?
I mean, the WNBA has, like, time after time seemed to have less hesitation in being politically active and on the right side of history and, like, needing fewer things to, seemingly give them permission to speak out. I think it's like a couple years ago, maybe this was seen as like a little thing, but it's just happened over and over again, year after year after year, where I feel like other leagues and other players and other cities, like to some degree, it's not just leagues, but, I think what we saw in Atlanta from the Dream impacts what we see from the Hawks. Like I do think there's like there are movements that happen within cities and the teams in those cities that really starts to catch fire. And I really think, to see a team wear Vote Warnock shirts and to see that spread not just on that team but throughout the WNBA, throughout the league, that is extremely powerful stuff that like is a part of 2020. Like that's a part of what happened in Georgia, and what happened in this election cycle, something that you just can't expect players to do because it puts you're putting yourself and potentially your money in jeopardy. And that's often the moment where people like start to take a step back. It's like, well, I don't, I want to speak out, but I don't want to jeopardize anything. Like athletes that have a lot to be jeopardized, athletes that are not making, who fines aren't just like little drops in the bucket. Fines could be massive percentages of what you're making. To see those players, those athletes make stands like that, that's putting society before your day job. Like that's what I think we all hope we do and then often don't do. And so to see athletes do that, I mean, it's inspiring, and it also is the type of thing that makes it more commonplace. It makes you want to do it in just your job, like non-athletes, folks who are, working at wherever. Like it gives you a little bit more confidence to put your name on the line because you've seen other people do it. So like I'm always impressed by many of the athletes in the WNBA, and it's also just like exciting to see that happen in your city.
Yeah, they definitely lead the way amongst athletes, which makes me wonder how you think the NBA sort of fits into this story. There are a number of social justice initiatives at the forefront in the bubble. They had Black Lives Matter on the court. They had their approved messaging on the jerseys. Committees and coalitions were formed. They had a pledge from the governors to be donating for the next 10 years, but maybe the biggest direct impact was opening arenas as polling places. What's the NBA's role in the social justice movements?
I mean, I tend to care a lot more about what individuals say than, sweeping initiatives, because those can feel sometimes a little lip servicey, and like sometimes it's like, well, what does this actually mean? Like, yes, like pledging money and stuff like that's directly impactful oftentimes, but you know, a lot of times it feels like, let's start another committee, let's do this, you know. But you know, going back to like thinking about the Hawks coach again, thinking about Lloyd Pierce, you know, hearing him, you know, make a speech at a rally in Atlanta, you know, and having, you know, not even been in Atlanta for that long, having him like step into a role in a city that is a very civil rightsy city and have that be a leader, like not just in a organization, but in a city like that does it for me. Like that feels powerful, you know? So like, and I think that trickles down into, you know, seeing Trey at Black Lives Matter rallies. Like, I think stuff like seeing people actually make statements that came out of like their own head, you know, like seeing people, you know, hearing how people actually feel about things and seeing people do things that don't always feel so media trained and pre-planned and, you know, perfectly packaged, but like a little raw, or like stuff like that makes me feel that the NBA has a pulse. And when it comes from leadership, like there's a reason when LeBron does stuff that's powerful, because he is the de facto leader of the league. You know, like it doesn't hit the same if it's like the 10th guy on the bench, you know, like that but when it's the guy, people follow the guy. And so to see that from coaches, you know, there's a reason. I mean, there are lots of reasons, but like that's one of the reasons like someone like Popovich is incredible, because he just like seemed like he would just say what he felt and be like, you know, do with that what you want. Like, this is what's right, this is what's wrong. It's like, wow, like that dude has a moral compass, and there are things that matter beyond basketball. And I think the more the NBA continues to allow individuals to be individuals and say things like that, that's where the real power for me of the NBA, as a league that's not silencing its voices.
Yeah, having followed the league the way we have for like a decade and a half, this is definitely the year where people have voiced their voices more than ever. It has become it hasn't become taboo now to talk about these things. It has become more sort of attainable, personable. Even when you talked about like being a politician with a capital P, and that being sort of a lofty perch that's unattainable, it's now sort of permeated through the airwaves in the NBA world in a way that hasn't happened before, where we're all just talking about voting. And Lloyd Pierce is definitely one person who's done that. The players throughout the league, whatever the turnout rate was, you know, something like 90% of players were registered to vote and voted. It's a ridiculous number, and in a good way, obviously. And that's why we saw a turnout unlike anything since the year 1900, as you say in the show. That was like 66.5% of eligible voters voted. It's just something you talk about, and people are talking about now, and it obviously resulted in something positive, that it's just become less of politics is a thing that happens over there. Now it's a thing that happens in my living room, and it's just so freaking important that it's not just campaign season all the time, which I hope I never get over how dumb it is that politicians are just campaigning forever. Like, as a foreigner, as a Canadian who comes here, like I get sucked in. I mean, I get sucked into this soap opera that is, sure, the back and forth between Ossoff and Handel, sure, for 18 frickin' months. It's not that long, but for so frickin' long, the issues are the issues, and those don't go away. And campaigning is just a campaign.
Yeah, that has always been one of my big pet peeves, which is like, as soon as you win, it's like time to start again. It's like, does anyone ever just like focus on the job, or is just like, are you just trying? Is the job staying employed? You know,
Yes.
and that
start
becomes
the re-election fund as soon as you're elected.
that becomes very frustrating.
Well, we love the podcast. Episode 3 just came out today. I can't wait to listen. I was 100% sold on this when you mentioned you went to Paideia School. Shout out to Paideia. Then we're talking about Manuel's Tavern. This is great, Rembert. We're all hoping for the best Tuesday, but before we let you go, we got to play a game. We've been following you for a decade. I was going to say, I know you love a vintage jersey, and then you show up wearing a new vintage jersey, the big boy Outcast Atlanta Hawks jersey. This thing is a banger, remember?
That is hard, man.
Anyways, NBA teams, they're getting new jerseys every single season. Some of them are great, some of them not so much. We're going to show you one of these new City Edition jerseys. You tell us if it's classic, if it's trash, or if it's a future classic, something that's going to look great in a few years. Your first City jersey, City Never Sleeps. The New York Knicks, this one's been getting dunked on hardcore.
Oh man, the Knicks have a great collab with Kith, and the stuff looks good. This Squarespace volleyball jersey is terrible. This is trash. Please get this off my screen.
Sorry to offend you. All right, our next one, the New Orleans Pelicans, going with the fleur-de-lis and the intense color blocking. Classic, trash, or future classic?
This feels like something I have made in Microsoft Paint. But it might grow on me. This might be a future classic, but right now it is not doing ththings for me.
Yeah, see, that's exactly how I feel. Like, this clearly looks ridiculous for an NBA jersey, but so did the Bucks one that had a Bucks drawn on it with a crayon. So did the Hawks spread wing jersey. You got to take some risks.
Also,
I will say
there are some jerseys that look a little silly in people who are jacked. And the small armholes, like with this one, it feels smaller than it probably actually is.
Yeah, you're probably right. All right, next jersey, the Oklahoma City Thunder, rocking the gas station NASCAR look. Classic, trash, future classic.
This is an absolute classic. This is, I know, it's weird, but I love gas station chic. This looks like,
I believe that.
I feel like I would put this on and just drive west. I'm gonna go on a road trip. This is.
It screams the South, no doubt. I hope it's $29.99 at the gas station. It makes sense.
Also, the loves, the ad, feels perfect on it. This totally. Is like just straight up Earnhardt, like Gordon. This is great. This is good. This is a current classic.
Yeah, I think if you buy this, they actually throw in a pack of Slim Jims with it, which is pretty exciting. You know, you're getting something to eat and a nice new jersey. All right, got a couple more for you here, Rembert. Here's the Suns, the Valley uniforms.
This is a bad jersey.
You don't like this?
I do not like this. It looks like a iTunes visualizer.
Fair point.
It is. You know what? I think the Suns have had many classics. Mm-hmm. And I think they are the reason this is tough is that it's just not at the Suns' classic level that they have hit multiple times. So I say this is not it. This is a trash can.
Oh, this is a full-on trash can. That's not good. All right, our final jersey, the Brooklyn Nets wearing the Basquiat jerseys. Classic, trash, future classic.
Oh man, he just couldn't have wanted this.
Yeah. I agree.
Basquiat. If someone gave it to me for free, though, I'd wear it tomorrow. This is probably a future classic. It's definitely not a classic right now. It feels a little culture vulture-y, a little Jay-Z is way too rich. But it's not trash, but it's not currently classic.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on all counts. Rembert, thank you so much for joining us. I mentioned it off the top. You've got an easy Twitter handle to remember. You must know people over there to get you hooked up with that. Let people know where they can follow you, what they can be expecting in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, you can follow me at Rembert, Rembert, where I will be for the next couple weeks, pretty much talking about this podcast, Gaining Ground, the new Georgia. We've got 2 more episodes left. An episode coming out on the 5th of January, runoff day, and then a final episode, which we have no idea what that episode is going to be like because it's completely dependent on how the election goes. So we are making this thing in real time, but I want to give a shout out to Crooked Media, to Tenderfoot TV, and of course my co-host Jewel Wicker, who is the jam.
Yeah, it's a great podcast. Sounds like you're going to be heading back to the closet to lay down some more sick voiceovers. Can't wait to hear it. Thank you to everybody out there listening, whether it's on the podcast or on the Athletic app. You can subscribe at theathletic.com/nodunks, where you can still get that buy one, gift one deal for a few more days. Also, thanks to anybody checking this out on our YouTube channel. Follow us everywhere at No Dunks Inc. That's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, even a TikTok. Maybe we'll get some votes going there on the TikTok. Anyways, you can get your No Dunks items at nodunks.com. We will be back tomorrow. If you live in Georgia, make a plan to vote on January 5th.
You could stay, ooh, every day, and I'd be happy every minute.